So I fired up the Xbox in quote version play anywhere version of Gotham Knights with my spruced up $700 build. I say spruced up because I tweaked the CPU because I saw that CPU in GameStop and I was like, yep, this CPU is been discontinued by AMD. It's a 5800X 3D and I wanted to leverage. I wanted to own that CPU. So I put it together. I was able to get 1440 60 FPS on Gotham Knights, a game that's locked to to the Xbox and PlayStation console at 30 FPS. Now, this is not to just talk about PC builds or PC gaming, but to talk about the possibility here that Xbox is missing. There's all this talk about Xbox wanting to go ahead and make, the Xbox ecosystem accessible from the PC side and so on and so forth. But one thing I got to say is Xbox needs to now take the next step to sweeten the deal for developers. Let me explain. Steam as a platform is actually very well accessible by developers. I'm working on a tiny little game, project demo thing that I've been, working with a bunch of developers and building. And one of the first things that we wanted to do was go ahead and set up a developer portal via Steamworks. Believe you me, it's $100 fee, some documentation, and you're already in there. I literally have a developer account and I can launch a page any day that I want on Steam. Now, yes, there are checks and balances for you to make sure that your game is not violating any Steam policies and making sure that they have features and stuff that's needed. But that accessibility to get into the ecosystem as a developer is the most user-friendly that I've seen. Epic Games makes it almost like that as well. Good Old Games, they require that you show them, a little bit of your game at work. It doesn't have to be the game. It could be just a demo, and they'll go ahead and approve it. But Xbox and PlayStation, their deal is, in my opinion, a little bit more stringent because of the different hoops and, checks and balances that you have to go ahead and pass. I think Xbox, if they really are serious about this stuff, need to start taking that approach of accessibility to developers on their own developer portal. That's number one. Number two, they need to be able to attract developers in a much better approach. For instance, let's say they've talked about possibly making this particular, the Xbox PC platform attractive for developers. That is, if you go ahead and buy your game through the PC side, they want to give you 10%. Xbox app developer, I think they said they're promising about 12% for those who want to go ahead and, for the revenue share. So it says Microsoft is enticing game developers to its Windows-based store by offering 12% revenue share for games and 15% for app, a significant reduction from the previous 30% cut, aiming to boost PC gaming on its platform. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what I think. A lot of these games that are coming both on the PC side and the console side, they need one thing to make them very appealing for the gamer who's playing on the Xbox platform and to possibly go ahead and look at buying this Xbox OEM hardware, and that is Play Anywhere. I think if Xbox is willing to go ahead and basically reduce this fee to 12% on the PC side, the console side ought to have an incentive. Not saying they should reduce the console to 12%. Don't go out there and start running and saying VG wants Xbox to not make money or whatever it is. I couldn't care whether they make money or not, but they need the presence of developers on their platforms. Hence, if they could couple a Play Anywhere incentive for developers, I think this is where they could start seeing some developers who are serious about their games start coming more and more into the ecosystem. And this is besides Game Pass. This has nothing to do with Game Pass. It has none of that. They just say, hey, if you make your game Play Anywhere, here is the incentive that we're going to grant to you. I think this is definitely where Xbox needs to be if they're going to pretty much unlock their ecosystem in a very intuitive way. Already, the people who are going to play the game on console are going to play the game on console. People who want to play the game across other devices look to want to play the game across other devices, and many of them base their decisions on that. And if Xbox wants its ecosystem to actually look like that, then as much as they're leading the way and showing developers, hey, we're doing this with our games, you too can do it, they need to let the developers realize that if you do it, there is a business incentive, there's a fiscal advantage for you to do it. Now, is this something that exists that we don't know about because we don't, sign the documents and the paperwork? It could as well be. But I think if it was out there, Xbox's business has a way of basically making its way out to the public. We probably would have known by now. So this is an incentive and a strategy that they need to basically go ahead and leverage as things go on. Epic Games is using the exact same strategy to also run their business. Now, this is not the end all be all every time that developers are going to go ahead and, just jump into your ecosystem. Obviously, Epic Games' ecosystem is not necessarily always in the, accepted by developers. There's also the side of accessibility and functionality that developers would love to be able to, tap into. One thing I can say for sure is that Steam really does provide a solid access for developers. It's very easy to get into the Steam ecosystem, but then there's also a lot of support that Steam makes available for its devs. I think Xbox can also leverage that at the same time. It's not really that, crazy that a company that wants to attract developers wouldn't do that. Steam didn't have to, and what's crazy is Steam did not have to actually, incentivize developers with a reduced percentage fee. They actually serve their developers as much as they serve their own audiences, and that's attracted everybody to come to their platform. But Xbox is now on the back foot, having asked for 30% for almost nothing. I mean, because let's be real, the functionality that you can get here on the Xbox app on PC is nothing compared to what Steam offers in its own ecosystem. So them asking for $30, I'm glad they finally woke up and realized that that is a huge ask. This is why you're seeing Epic and, Xbox, storefront pretty much be mostly and largely ignored by a lot of people. I mean, sometimes people will come if there's a deal, they'll buy one or two games here and there, but there has to be some substance to it that says this is a platform that's going to basically help developers achieve the goals that they're trying to achieve if they come to the ecosystem. So I'm thinking to myself, games like these that allow for you to be able to go ahead and enjoy those cross-platform benefits need to be the norm, but Xbox is going to have to push a little bit to make it very, interesting by sweetening that deal for them. Not needing to pay them any money. I mean, it's their choice at the end of the day. You can't do anything to them. You've already set up two platforms. They can say, now we're not concerned about releasing an Xbox PC. We want to go on Steam. But here's the thing. If they could combine the deal for them, if they can say, hey, man, by all means, if you want to go ahead and bring a Play Anywhere game, we know we charge you 30% on a console and we charge you, 12% on, the PC side. If you do Play Anywhere, and companies will be like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. What sounds good to you? Make it a thing where, they feel comfortable, they can come in with a Play Anywhere. And I think a lot of game developers are going to leverage it as time goes on. I think there just has to be the push for it. It kind of was like how Game Pass was at first. And this has nothing to do with Game Pass. I'm just saying that the adoption is what I think is going to have to take a little while for it to simmer in. At first, I'm sure developers are looking and going like, we're going to launch a AAA level game on here. Like, how is that going to go? And then they started seeing how Xbox was treating its indie devs under the Idea at Xbox program. And some developers were like, man, that's not a bad proposition. If we can launch our game here with a bag and still be able to launch it everywhere else, there's nothing against that. So more and more, it seemed like other, developers started to kind of make their way in and say, okay, if this is a thing, we can do this or we can leverage this. It makes sense for us at this moment in time. And I think what's going to really break, this whole thing open is the moment we start seeing more than like a handful of AAA developers launch on Game Pass in their different cycles. I think that's probably what we're going to need to see. Sega has leveraged it. They're bouncing. They're going their own way. There's also talk that they might want to do their own subscription service. It seems like everybody's looking and seeing how, there might be money in this thing. But again, I think it's something that needs to be looked at very carefully. So there's a lot of work for Xbox to do. They're not out of the woods yet, even though they may be dominant in content, delivery, and they may be holding down the industry and they've set themselves up for the future. There's still opportunity in a saturated market like gaming where they can actually do some really, really serious work in making their platform a very attractive one for like a lot of people. It just doesn't have to be, there's all the talk about, oh yeah, it has to be the console or whatever it is. But the platform is getting more and more traction now. People are talking about Game Pass. There's more going on. But how are they going to make the next push to probably push more, people in their ecosystem back and forth? If they can't get the 100 million Game Pass subscribers, they might as well shoot for 600 MAUs, right? I mean, any way that they can do it. And I think availability of games is a very big gaping hole that Xbox could actually fill in the third-party side. On their own part, they're doing a good job. They're bringing games. It's all landing on Game Pass. Good on them. Yay. We're paying our subscription. We're seeing our money's worth at this moment in time. The next phase is get these devs in here. This PC, ecosystem is a little scanty. And the Play Anywhere, even though it's bolstered at about 1,000, it needs to now be the norm that they're pushing for because, again, like I said, the OEM device and the attraction towards it needs that incentive for players to be able to say, yeah, I'll buy this and buy my Nintendo Switch. You get what I mean? Like they'll be able to say, I want to accompany my Nintendo Switch with this particular handheld because it will have access to these games that maybe my Switch 2 doesn't have access to in this ecosystem and plus the Xbox stuff. And, just think about it from that perspective of giving the gamers a little bit more. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. Talk to me in the comment section. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.